I'm 75 years old, and I need to tell you something that took me half a lifetime to admit. I did not fail loudly. I did not collapse financially. I did not destroy my relationships in some dramatic explosion. From the outside, my life looked steady, respectable, productive, and that was the problem, because the mistake I made for decades did not look like a mistake. It looked like responsibility. It looked like discipline. It looked like doing what a grown man is supposed to do. I thought I was building security. I thought I was protecting my future. I thought I was being wise. What I was actually doing was postponing my own life. If that sentence makes you uncomfortable, stay with me. I told myself I would slow down later. I would reconnect later. I would rest later. I would speak honestly later. I would pursue what mattered most later. Later became my strategy. And later quietly became my excuse. There was no single moment that exposed it. It was gradual. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one evening, staring at a calendar full of obligations, and realizing something unsettling. I could predict the next 10 years of my life with frightening accuracy, not because I had vision, because I had routine. Routine is powerful. It creates order. It creates stability. But when routine replaces reflection, it becomes a trap. I was not choosing anymore. I was maintaining, and maintenance feels productive. You pay bills. You meet deadlines. You attend events. You keep things running. You look dependable. But deep down, I had stopped asking myself one critical question. Is this still the life I would choose today? For years, I avoided that question because it was dangerous. It could require change. It could disrupt comfort. It could disappoint people, so I stayed consistent. Consistency is praised in our culture, but consistency in the wrong direction only takes you further away from alignment. If you are listening right now and you feel that quiet tension in your chest, that subtle sense that something is off, but not catastrophic, I want you to pay attention to it. That whisper is more honest than your schedule. The mistake I made was not chasing success. It was defining success too narrowly. I measured my life in productivity, in income, in reliability. I rarely measured it in meaning, in connection, in presence. I thought being needed was the same as being fulfilled. It is not. Being needed can exhaust you. Being fulfilled energizes you. There was a period in my 40s when I felt the misalignment clearly. I remember driving home after a long day, gripping the steering wheel, feeling this strange mixture of accomplishment and emptiness. I told myself it was normal. I told myself everyone feels that way. I told myself that adulthood requires endurance. Endurance without intention becomes slow erosion. I eroded my curiosity. I eroded my creativity. I eroded my willingness to question the script I had inherited. Study hard. Work hard. Avoid risk. Stay stable. Do not rock the boat. That script is not evil. It is incomplete. It does not teach you how to adapt when you change internally. It does not teach you how to update your identity. At 75, I can see the pattern clearly. The decades I spent optimizing efficiency instead of authenticity were not wasted entirely. I learned discipline. I learned responsibility, but I also postponed courage, and postponing courage is the same as shrinking your world. If you are younger than me, you still have leverage. If you are close to my age, you still have agency. But only if you are willing to confront this question honestly. What have you been getting wrong repeatedly? Not because you are reckless, but because you are comfortable. Comfort is not always peace. Sometimes it is disguised fear. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of instability. Fear of starting over. I chose comfort more often than conviction. And that is the mistake I spent half my life repeating. The truth is, comfort seduces you slowly. It does not demand attention. It does not shout. It simply whispers that everything is fine, that you are doing what is expected. That stability is the highest form of success. And for years, I believed that. I believed that if I avoided risk, avoided conflict, avoided disruption, I was being wise. But wisdom without courage becomes stagnation. I postponed difficult conversations with people I loved. I postponed asking myself whether I still felt alive inside my own routine. I postponed making changes that would have required temporary discomfort. And temporary discomfort always felt more frightening than long-term regret. That is how decades pass. There was a season in my early 50s when I felt something inside me pushing for change. I had ideas I never explored, conversations I never initiated, paths I never tested. But every time that internal voice rose up, another voice answered louder. Be practical. Be stable. Don't complicate things. So I stayed where I was. Staying felt safe. But safety is not the same as growth. Over time, I noticed something subtle. My curiosity began to shrink. I stopped asking why. I stopped questioning assumptions. I became efficient instead of engaged. Efficiency keeps life running. Engagement makes life meaningful. If this resonates with you even slightly, pause for a second and acknowledge it. You don't have to admit it publicly, but if you're willing, leave a simple comment like, "I feel this." Not for the algorithm, for yourself. Naming something makes it harder to ignore. One of the biggest lies I believed was that I had plenty of time to adjust later. I assumed that clarity would come automatically with age, that reflection could wait, but clarity does not arrive on its own. It requires intentional pauses, and I rarely paused, filled my schedule so tightly that there was no room left for honest reflection. Busyness became my shield. As long as I was productive, I didn't have to confront misalignment. You can hide from yourself for a long time that way. Another thing I misunderstood was the idea of being needed. I tied my worth to usefulness. As long as people depended on me, I felt valuable. But dependency is not the same as connection. When your identity is built entirely around being needed, you lose yourself when roles change, and roles always change. By my 60s, I had achieved many of the goals I once chased. Financial stability, professional respect, a predictable rhythm. From the outside, it looked like I had made it. Inside, I felt strangely unfinished. I realized I had optimized for approval more than alignment. Approval feels good in the moment. Alignment sustains you in the long run. There is a difference. I also began to notice how often fear influenced my decisions. Not dramatic fear, quiet fear. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of looking inconsistent. Fear of starting something and failing publicly. So I chose what was safe. Safe rarely transforms you. Looking back, I do not regret working hard. I do not regret providing. I do not regret caring about responsibility. What I regret is allowing responsibility to silence authenticity. I allowed expectations to define my boundaries. And when you let expectations define your boundaries, you slowly disappear inside your own life. At some point in my 70s, I asked myself a question that changed everything. If no one were watching, would I still choose this life? That question cut through decades of rationalization. The honest answer was uncomfortable. Would have made different choices earlier. I would have taken certain risks. I would have spoken more honestly. I would have invested more energy in relationships instead of reputation. But here is the part I want you to hear carefully. Regret does not have to paralyze you. It can clarify you. I cannot rewrite 40 years, but I can refuse to repeat the same pattern in the years I have left, and you do not need to wait until 75 to make that shift. If you are 45, 50, 60, you still have leverage. You still have time to correct course before the pattern becomes permanent. The mistake I made was not traumatic. It was subtle. I confused stability with fulfillment. I confused busyness with purpose. I confused approval with alignment, and I repeated those confusions for half my life. If you take anything from this, let it be this: do not postpone alignment. Do not wait for a crisis to force reflection. Create space intentionally. Ask yourself uncomfortable questions. Adjust while the cost of adjustment is still manageable. And if conversations like this help you reflect more honestly, consider subscribing and staying connected. Not because I want numbers, but because consistent reflection changes direction over time. You do not need to abandon responsibility. You need to pair it with awareness, but you do not need to destroy stability. You need to make sure stability is serving the right version of you. At 75, I still have breath. I still have clarity. I still have choice. The real tragedy would not be aging. It would be aging without ever having examined the path. So do not make the same mistake I did. Do not assume later will automatically fix what today is. MISALIGNED. Later is not a strategy. It is a delay. And delays compound quietly. Choose consciously while you still can.